as I say, I don't know Parag as well as Andrew, but I think they're quite a complementary duo because, and it's maybe this East Coast, West Coast thing, you know. Andrew's obviously from Philadelphia. Parag, I think, is from California, certainly obviously San Francisco now. So I think that kind of slightly different style and background, but I think they're quite complementary.
Mm-hmm. So talk us through, Paul, the involvement, how it came to pass, how, you know, and at what point did you realise, wow, this is big?
So I met Andrew for the first time on a Zoom call just at the end of October last year, so that's about, 7 months ago. I'm on it now, actually, 9 months ago. And we had a bit of a chat, nice guy. He was then coming to London about a week later, so I flew down to London and had lunch with him in central London. A really good chat. He was actually he didn't actually mention the 49ers at that point in time, but he was actually with a guy from Leeds. So I kind of figured out that there was something else, you know, maybe going on, but he didn't actually mention the 49ers as, you know, at that point in time. And yeah, we had a really good chat. I mean, my first impressions were, first of all, really nice guy, very easy to talk to, and you know, as we've been discussing, you know, over the last 20 years, I've met a lot of people who want to invest in Rangers and come forward, and I think we all know some of the people that we've just been mentioning. So Andrew was different. You know, you just get a sense immediately this guy is well, first of all, very successful businessman in his own right, very serious guy, but also a nice guy, and also engaged. You know, I talked him through the history of the club. You know, we talked him through the last 15 years, some of the things that happened, and you could tell he was really engaged. And he obviously knew a lot of the things we were talking about. As it happened, because the guy was there from Leeds, I did take the opportunity of mentioning the Battle of Britain 30 years ago, which they were quite amused by. I said, that shows you where Rangers were 30 years ago, before the English Premier League came into existence. We were, if not the biggest club in Britain, certainly one of the biggest clubs in Britain.
As big as anyone, eh?
Big as anyone. And unfortunately, you know, all the money came into the EPL. So they were actually quite interested in that. And I think the two things that really struck me about Andrew that day, so that was early November, were, you know, first of all, he was really engaged in what I was saying. You know, he was obviously really interested. He actually, so that was a Friday. That was a Friday with lunch, and we were playing Hearts on the Sunday at Ibrox. And he actually said to me, "I think I'll just fly up to Ibrox and go to the game." I was like, "Okay." So I said, "Well, do you want to try and speak to somebody?" He said, "No, I'll just get a ticket and I'll just go." And okay, now as it turned out, he didn't go for various reasons, some family stuff on. But he then contacted me about a week later and said, "I want to come to the Dundee United game," which was in middle of November. And I said, "Again, do you want to help?" And I said, "No, I'll just go and get a ticket, a normal ticket, just any bit." I think he went into the Copeland stand, I think, actually. I thought it was quite interesting, that guy of, you know, that wealth, and he just thought, "I'm going to buy a ticket." And so he flew up to Glasgow. He got a ticket on his own. He went with a couple of other guys. And you might remember that was a really bizarre game, because it was actually a 3 o'clock kickoff on the Saturday, and it was really bad weather. It was middle of November, but it was snowdrifts and crazy weather, to the point that Dundee United couldn't get down the A9.
That's right. Yeah.
So the game, he actually contacted me saying, "When's the game start?" So I've just looked at it, and apparently it's been delayed till 4 o'clock. So I've never known that. A game was delayed by an hour to 4 o'clock. So it was a really weird day. And Andrew was basically, you know, walking about the stadium, looking at the stands, looking at the.
Nobody's got a clue.
And nobody knew who he was. So I thought it was actually really interesting that a guy like that would take the time, because all these guys want, you know, let's go to the director's box and VIP. This guy was prepared to put on, you know, just his kind of work clothes, if you like, and just go in and look at it. And another thing that happened that day, you might remember, there was quite a lot of fan protests as well, because it was the start of there was a bit of a, you know, the fan stuff was going on. So not only has he got to contend with, you know, snowdrifts, but I thought it was quite interesting.
Yeah.
You know,
It didn't put him off.
Well, obviously not.
And it felt like towards the end of last season, even before the deal was done, you felt like he was there every week. Maybe he was at Celtic Park, and he was at all the European games as well.
He is present a lot, isn't he?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I think that's a good sign, I think, for Rangers supporters, that he's not one of these stay away guys. You know, he actually wants to have a boots on the ground approach to running it. Is that something that you're happy with, or would it be better for him to put a bit of distance, because you know how hot it can get?
I think a bit of distance is not a bad thing. I mean, I think, and I think he said it. I'm not party to what they're going to be doing going forward, but you know, obviously you've got Parag and Andrew on the board, but they've appointed obviously, and they put other people on the board as well. But they've just appointed a new chief executive, a new, and other guys. So you have to let the executives run the club, Patrick Stewart and so on, and his team. So I think what they'll do, like any other business, they'll let those guys run the business, obviously reporting to the board. So I actually think a bit of distance. Come back to what I said before. I think it's not a bad thing that they're not Rangers fans who are here all the time with the pressure and the expectations. And so I think having a bit of distance. And a bit of perspective, to me, is not a bad thing.
What is it you think, or what did Andrew say to you in your discussions that made you think, yep, he's absolutely the guy? What did he outline to you what his vision is, or what his plan is, or what his ambition is for Rangers that made you go along with it, or was it just him as a guy that was the kind of seal in the deal? Yeah,
well, I think he's, you've heard him speaking. He's quite a kind of measured and considered guy, and I quite like that. He's not like I don't know him that well. I mean, I only met him a few times, but I think in the dealings I had with him, which were quite a few, I think he's a considered, measured guy who's obviously been very successful in business, and he's not going to be prone to the danger in football is you get prone to those, kind of hyperbole. Like we're going to go and spend 100 million and win the Champions League in 10 minutes and all. So I think we've got to be realistic and just let these guys take their time, look at the situation, and actually just build it going forward. And I think to answer your question, you got to spend some time with the guy. You realise he's a very he's a serious guy, and I think also, it was quite clear to me. I actually messaged him. So we had lunch, and I was then getting back to the airport, and I sent him a message just saying, really enjoyed meeting you, etc. I said, I actually think you and your colleagues. I didn't actually know that. I'd suspected because the Leeds guy was. I didn't know at that time that he kind of alluded to, his sporting partner, and that was obviously the 49ers. He didn't say that at the meeting, but I kind of guessed that. I just said, you and your colleagues or associates, I said, I just really feel, having met you, and that was just after the first meeting, lunch, I said, I really feel you'd be great owners for the club. You just kind of felt, I've met tons of people over the years come forward, and all the people we've mentioned, he just knew with the guy, this is a different sort of animal, and I think, obviously he was, keen to buy a football club. One of the things that was quite interesting, actually, when we were talking about the history, and I took him through the history, he was, what became clear is, and actually I made the mistake, you always do, Americans, about talking about soccer. And he quickly said, look, Paul, that's not, I don't call it, it's football. Why are you calling it soccer? I'm sorry. So he actually quickly, corrected me, and then began to tell me, he said, look, I've been to 5 World Cups with the US, watching World Cups, and his English team is Arsenal. And I said, well, that's quite interesting. I said, because I don't know if you know about it, but there's actually quite a long history between Rangers and Arsenal. And I sent him a link to a thing. I said, actually, you won't believe this, but Rangers actually rescued Arsenal.
The share thing, isn't it?